Hello, 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 and welcome to Shared Space with Quita and Chat. Chapo, we got Meek and I with us today. Uh-oh, we got fireworks behind me, y'all. I'm sorry. Hear that. Folks are excited about MLK Day. And so am I. Yesterday, I was at the MLK Symposium, Fair Housing Symposium for MLK Day out in
Yes,
Laurel, hosted by a fellow Black USA News reporter, personality, Martin Mitchell. It was a dope event. We were
it
out
was amazing.
there all day. Thing one will be installed at the Boys and Girls Club right down the street, and it'll be there for about a week. So yeah, stop by, check it out. Um, Mika and I, we're gonna get to you in a second. Chapo, what have you been up to?
Hey, so my name's Chap. I'm full-time volunteer chaplain for Baltimore City through the police department. For those who don't know, and I had an amazing time at Martin's event yesterday. He filled the room with some like very quality people. That was amazing. My favorite was the Hunger Free Zone food truck. This guy's been feeding Baltimore out of a food truck for free, and it's all vegetarian to be a respecter of all faiths and different eating habits.
So dope.
Mr. Steve Zilli, and he's partnered with this other guy. Man, I can't remember, Mr. VJ, and they drive around and feed people for free, no questions asked. They just got a food truck and go feed like people. Like it's amazing. I don't know how it's sustainable, but whatever we can do to come alongside. If you guys anybody's interested in supporting that and helping this guy out, he's already got it figured out. He's been doing it for like 45 years, but if we can help sustain him and support him and encourage him, like just hit us up, let us know. So even though there was a room full of mayors and senators and stuff, those guys were the most impressive to me. So I was encouraged by that.
That's dope.
Um,
That's dope.
yeah, today I was over Lexington Market. They had an MLK event.
Which one? Which one? They had like 17 today. It
They
was
did.
crazy.
So I was there from 10 to 12. They did a little something something, and then at 3 o'clock,
The empanada
TOG.
lady was there.
Oh yeah. So TOG, Uncle G and his family were out there feeding. They fed. So let me back up. Let me tell you about this restaurant because I met these guys. Um, and they derailed my whole pitch for Breadcoin in front of all the vendors. So I went to Lexington Market to bring Breadcoin to the market, right? And I just want to get this through real quick because these guys just man, they capture my heart. So I showed up to share the Breadcoin with the market vendors because we want to get one in each market so we can feed our communities more, give people more food access using the bread coins. And this guy shared this program he's got. We're on his menu at TOG's, little Dominican spot on the second floor at Lexington Market, and at our house, as Mick and I acknowledged earlier while we were talking. Um, he had on his menu pay it forward. It was an add on to your meal for $1. So you add $1 to your bill, and they take that money and they put it in an account. And then when people don't have money or you're short, they take the money out of that account and eat. So everybody eats there. They never turn nobody down to eat. Um, and so it's like a really great program. And so this guy shared this with me, and I'm bringing the bread coin to him, and he pitched this to me, and I'm like, well, why isn't everybody doing that? Like that makes so much sense, right? So really great concept. They took some of the money they've collected through that program, and they fed 125 people today. They're giving away brand new socks and sweatpants and hoodies and clothes and feminine hygiene products. So Lexington Market, Mr. Mark's a manager over there. But to G and his brother Jay, like Uncle G was killing it with this program, man. So like I was super excited to just kind of witness that and
Right.
um, yeah. So good things like I know the market's got some different connotations to it, but go see what they're doing now in the new market and understand it's not the old market, but it's not the
It's
complete
not that new. Like
gentrification that
it got
you
a
think.
facelift, but the same community, the same folks. Like,
Yes,
don't get it twisted, y'all. The
yeah,
gentrification is real, but the people are still in the community.
and we're holding it
And my good
down.
good girlfriend Jessica Blackwell, she invited me out there, but I was like, girl, this MLK Day, we booked and busy. I don't know if I can make it by, but I heard it was amazing. And
It
so now
was.
let's get to our amazing guest today who I've bumped into 17 million times before we like did anything together. So we're going to work that out. And then correct me Where's the accent? Is it Micknai or Micknai? Because I'm sorry, I get the same thing with Laquita and Lakita.
No, it's fine. You said it right the second time. So Mick and I.
Okay,
Mick and I.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
Micknai,
so
tell us what you've been up to. Tell us how do you introduce yourself to the
yeah,
people,
introduce
however
yourself,
you see
please, because
fit. Because you do a lot, and I don't know what we're gonna lead with today.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. My name is Micknai Arefaine. My pronouns are she, they. And let's see. I am relatively new to Baltimore. I've been here since 2020. I did grow up in the East Coast, the Mid Atlantic, so I'm not new to this area. Um, let's see. I do a couple different things. I met Quita at an event that you put on. Two events that you put on. I think the first one was at Waverly YMCA, and then
Oh,
the
hey,
and
the
then
so
Hog
when I
Expo.
found out about the Montebello Walk and went to that, and that was because
Why these things
of
matter? Go ahead.
that's because I saw it on a mutual friend's Instagram, so I ended up coming through, and then that's where I met Chap. So it's more I just tend to show up at places
yes, you do.
and try to be open and see who I'm going to meet, and it's always leads to the next best thing. So
Right.
I am I do a couple different things. I met y'all also in kind of my capacity of making food. So I have a business called Habesha Flavor. Um, and I also am a doula. I work with the Baltimore Doula Project, which is a nonprofit that gets low cost or free doula service to folks in the Baltimore community who need it. I work exclusively with Black birthing people. That's what got me into reproductive justice in the first place. And I'm also an anthropologist. And so I bring that lens to a lot of different things. I'm first generation Ethiopian, born and raised in rural Virginia. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like
You
those are all things I do, but
right,
not necessarily,
That's
they
so
make
right.
cool
That
to hear.
doesn't right.
I
That
like.
doesn't
yeah. But
complete you.
I'm glad to be in Baltimore because everybody here got like 20 hustles.
Right. And
So
we
You got
understand
to.
it.
including you two. So people here are like, oh yeah, you do all those things, cool.
Yeah, we get it. You don't
Me
have to
too.
explain. We understand. Like we're not trying to make nobody fit in a box. Okay. That's
So
not
That's what I love about Charm City. And I'm also a transplant. I'm not going anywhere. I live over here in Penn North, and I love it. I love my house. I love my neighborhood. I love Baltimore. Like, this is my city. I'm gonna be
all
here for a
right.
minute. Yeah.
right. So Mick and I, for me, I was born in New York, raised in Baltimore County. Then I went to school in Atlanta. Then I bought my house in Baltimore City. So when I talk to people who are from Baltimore City, I'm damn near a transplant too, sis. So you and I are in the same boat. Like if you ask Chap, he's like, "Oh yeah, she's from New York," but I'm like, "But I'm from Baltimore. Like what are you doing? Like this is where I went to high school." Like all those things, but
Your
it's so
formative
funny.
years.
Right. You
No,
know what
yeah,
I
we claim it now. One thing I'll share, Mick and I, while I was looking up some of the because some of the things you do because you do have a lot going on. And I'd love for you to break down for people watching what the anthropology of food like. That was really cool. And I don't know if you're familiar with the word gastronomy, which I learned today researching some of the stuff you do, because it's just very interesting and fascinating. But once one article or one interview or something you did, I saw where you described yourself as the living ancestor, Earthside. So I really like,
mean?
yeah, I really captured my imagination and really captured kind of your philosophy on how you see yourself. So as you tell us the things you do, I think that really captured who you are, and you can also break that down because I know that you are. We had talked about previously, which is why she's on the show. We were just having this really great conversation down Bel Edison, right in front of a Gogi project, but
On
she
the
came down to
street
visit.
where
But
all
like,
the
no, it
best
was really great, right? We're
conversations
talking
happen.
about being intentional about, um, not holding on to the past and the trauma of the past, but being able to look to the past and look to our ancestors and understand, you know, where we're from and understand the truths of where we're from, and being able to articulate that helps us move forward. So, I just wanted to continue the conversation, and any conversation that you bring to the mic tonight is, any truth that you have, like, and knowledge, like, please share. But it was really I don't know, it was really encouraging for me, kind of filled up my hope tanks, and I'm still riding on that, man. We just had a great conversation, very positive energy, and yeah, you do. You fit right in Baltimore because you do. You had like 20 different hustles, and yeah, like you said, it was like, yeah, me too. So what? Like,
Right. Like I love chat that you brought up the whole anthropology thing. Like I understand that that's not a place where we see a lot of people that look like me or Micknai. So tell me about that experience through one. You are your family is from a different country, right? So how did you acclimate that way? And then how did you know what I mean? Like even if you did or didn't acclimate, like just what was your experience when it all
Mhm.
came out?
Okay. I was trying to weave in all the things into the questions. Sorry about this light, by the way.
The light is fine. We can see
Okay.
you just fine. You're good.
So I'm like, chat, what interview did you find? You have to share that with me because I don't even know what's out there. But yes, living ancestors. So okay, I'm trying to think of the best way. So anthropology, for those that don't know, it's just literally the study of everything having to do with people and culture. It's pretty broad, and you don't see people that look like us into it in it. I kind of got into it accidentally, like a lot of things in my life. Like I didn't want to be a doula, yet here I am. So, ancestors got their own. The universe has its own plan, and it just takes us where we need to go, whether we're kicking and screaming. So, I got into anthropology because I had some questions. First, I wanted to be a doctor, then I wanted to be a social worker, then I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was always trying to help people, but I kept seeing that people in my community. So I'm first generation Ethiopian. My parents were refugees. They came in 1982. We were sponsored by a church, and that's why we settled in the Shenandoah Valley. That's where the church was, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. And that's a whole experience in and of itself when people come as a refugee. A lot of times I say, yeah, we were immigrants, but we were refugees. Like it's a difference because of how, what they left behind and the reason that they left it behind. And so, in our communities, we started to see a lot of health issues. Like my dad developed diabetes and high blood pressure and things like that. And I took a food anthropology class because a friend of mine was like, yeah, I'm doing an anthropology major. I was like, what's that? And she was like, well, it's really cool. And she told me a little bit about it. So I ended up taking a class and I was almost done. Talk about the acclimation part. I'm the oldest daughter of an oldest daughter. I was the first generation. I had to figure out everything on my own. I went to 4 different schools, 6.5 years to finish my undergrad, but I finally got it. And I actually ended up getting my degree in anthropology. So I took this one class and I was just a few classes away from graduating. And so I ended up just adding a few more classes on and I got technically my degree in anthropology. But all my classes were actually international justice, international law, justice studies, restorative peace, and all those kind of things. But my degree was technically in anthropology. I ended up going to Kenya in undergrad and studying the effects of colonialism on food and nutrition. And that field study just showed me like, oh, okay, we're kind of seeing the same thing. Like when you come from Ethiopia, the only country in Africa that had never been colonized, with one of the most richest food histories of any country in the world, 13 agroecological zones, 14 different types of wheat, 8 different types of barley. Like we're talking about just a richness of eating that, and then you come to the US, it's like you're being colonized in your diet. So we're seeing all these things like high blood pressure and diabetes at really early onset within our community. So when I took a food anthropology class, we started talking about this and I never heard anybody talk about it. Well, it turned out the person teaching the class, this was like one of those anomalies. She was there for like a period of time. I had her and she was one of the foremost world like food anthropologists in the world. But she just happened to be teaching at this university in my hometown.
God bless.
So I got like the class. She was actually the one that taught the world that milk and being lactose intolerant is actually normal. So we should actually call people who can tolerate milk, we should call that lactase persistent because it's so she was all about, she's the one who taught me about the effects of corn. She's the one who taught me about, all of this processed food that we're putting in our bodies. Like she was looking at it from a whole different thing. And I was like,
What?
I'm in. Like, let's do this. So a lot of questions that I had started to be answered through this ethnographic process, is what we call it, anthropology. I went back to grad school 10 years later and got a second degree in anthropology and applied anthropology, which is where you use the tools of anthropology and ethnography to actually solve real world things.
Yeah.
I was the only Black person in my program.
Of course.
So then I discovered the field of Black feminist anthropology, and I joined the Association for Black Anthropologists. That might as well be a whole different discipline. Because guess who our foremother was? Guess who the mother of Black anthropology is?
I have no.
She lived in Baltimore.
We should know. We should know.
It
She
wouldn't.
lived right in my neighborhood.
How long ago? Because the only person I think of with food in Baltimore is like B.
It wasn't
Gaddy or
food.
something.
It was just anthropology, though. Zora Neale Hurston.
What?
Zora Neale Hurston was a student of Franz Boas, who was the father and founder of American anthropology.
No clue. Wow.
So all those books that she wrote, those are ethnographies.
Yeah, that's dope.
Alice Walker went and brought her back. So that might as well be a whole different discipline from what we know as traditional anthropology, which was, to me, the handmaiden of colonialism.
Right.
Right. So within the field of anthropology, there's this huge tension. So I went with the Black anthropologists, and then I went back to Ethiopia and did my research in northern Ethiopia with women.
Mm-hmm.
I studied how women organized around sustaining the families and food and things like that with my community. And I was like, white feminism? No, African womanism. You know what I'm saying, with Alice Walker. And then I started to be more comfortable in my identity as an American person, as a USer, and even finding all these similarities between Blackness, right? Because I grew up in a very white area, went to white private schools, was like forced to assimilate, but I never liked it. I was that kid that, like, I've been here before. You know how some kids, we've been here before? Like, I came out the womb like, nah.
Yeah.
I want to be.
Let me pause real quick for some of our viewers that look like me who don't know. Zora Neale Hurston is a African American, like a very prominent African American author. So yeah, look her up, Google her, expand your broad
Zora Neale
knowledge.
Hurston.
Yep.
Please look her up. She's a very important person. Yeah, folklorist, anthropologist, all of it. So I started going to Ethiopia, and before I did my research there, and I just I worked for the airline for 5 years. I literally would just fly to Ethiopia all the time. I just kept getting drawn back. Wow. And that's where this piece of the living ancestry piece starts to come in, because I started to explore my identity as a diasporic person, as a person who is in a body of a Black woman in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And what that actually meant. And as I started to actually deepen my relationship to my ancestry, to my indigenous identity, because I'm an indigenous African, and I started to realize, and then when I started learning more about indigenous cultures in the US or of Turtle Island, and really started to dig in, and then I started learning more about, you know, not just the legacy of slavery, but the real deeper meaning and cultures of, because, you know, when you grow up like diasporic, sometimes it's like you don't, that internalized stuff too, you know, that of trying to be middle class, not wanting to, okay, Black people, you know, okay, we're gonna do this thing over here. So as I started to get more into that, I realized like how much it was tied to settler colonialism, how much it was tied to you know, colonization, and the systems of oppression were part of something that had actually taken over the whole world.
Right.
And that they shaped their identities in so many different ways. So I'm a huge Black speculative fiction person, Black speculative arts person, also known as Afrofuturism, but this is a more of an inclusive term. I actually have a nonprofit called the Black Killing Collective, and we did a conference a few years in a row back in Oregon. So Walida Marisha, a dear, amazing human being who teaches at Portland State University, an acquaintance of mine, she was one of our main speakers the first year that we did it. And she has this, I think it's either her or Adrienne May Brown, her friend, they wrote a book called, they edited a book called Octavia's Brood. She said all organizing is science fiction because you have to imagine a better future in order to actually do this organizing work. And me and her are like huge fans of the show Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. I'm telling you, I'm my age right now. So there's actually an amazing episode where Cisco goes back in time and he has to actually live in a time where 300 years prior, where Black people are still oppressed, because he's in this future where and there's this quote where he says, I'm both the dreamer and the dream. Okay. So we are all living ancestors in this moment.
Yeah.
So I do a workshop about Sankofa. So I call it Sankofa Afrofuturism. And this idea of, okay, so you talked about going back to the past. So Sankofa, which comes from the West African Akan, from people that are now modern day Ghana. It's this image of a it's this image of a bird that's neck is craned back and it's picking up an egg from its back. So the Sankofa, you've probably seen it all over the place. Once you see it, you're going to notice a lot of folks use it in their imagery. It's very common. I see it all over Baltimore. It has people's clothes, on people's storefronts, on people's signs. This is a very, African American, just diasporic concept, but even though it came from West Africa.
Right.
So this idea is that you have to reach back from the past and you have to bring the egg. The egg is what's valuable. So how do we interact with the past? Of course, there's trauma back there. So going back to the past is not cute. You got to navigate it. But are you able to go back and bring the egg forward? So this idea, in indigenous communities and really for Black folk, right? Because we talk about time.
Right.
Time is not a linear. That's a Western thing, to have linear time. That's why we always late. We're not late. We early, because time is a circle and a spiral. So this idea that you reach back and you bring something forward. So we are all living ancestors in this body at this moment. So the question I ask people in these workshops are, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? So that's a way of bringing in the past and the future, but being present. Right. So that's that mindfulness stuff. That's that Eastern, that's that wisdom that, Thich Nhat Hanh and a lot of these gurus, right? But they all say the same exact thing. It's about, you got to engage with time in these different ways, but how do you do that in the present? And so that's why I ask, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? If you are a living ancestor in this moment, now, how do you live your life from that perspective? And if you do, you'll find that a lot of the things that both of you are doing, I think, are in line with, you already know what kind of ancestors you want to be. You're living that right now.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of to encompass all the questions that y'all asked in one answer.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. You touched on all the things. I got the information about some anthropology. I got some background on how you got started. And then you mentioned so many different things in there. Like, one, we'll go back to the effects of corn, because I'm not going to forget that. But did you mention that you worked for an airline and you were flying back and forth for 5 years?
Yes, I'm older than I look.
I mean, black don't crack. Black don't crack.
I turned 40 last year. Yes, I worked for an airline. So I went to college, but I was always working class. I think we don't talk about class enough in this country, but I got back and got my master's way later, and that was my first time really being in a whole different class. I was like 35. But I worked for an airline, and before that, when I was younger, I had a restaurant with my family. So the whole time I was doing college, I was also running a business, and that's a whole nother thing for another. But so I worked for U.S. Airways and American Airlines. I don't know the airline, but they're one airline now. Megacorp. They turned into a megacorp. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. And we got flight benefits. So I worked in Philadelphia. I lived in Philly for 5 years. I was a supervisor, customer service supervisor at PHL. I got stories for days. I've seen some things. And so I got to fly, and that was something that was just awesome.
Yeah.
I loved working at the airport. I loved that I could just fly wherever I wanted, and I used it to be able to go back to Ethiopia and connect with my family and my culture. So I've been to Ethiopia probably 21 or 22 times
That
since I was
is
16.
crazy. That is so amazing.
Wow.
Like that is I love, first of all, you know that I say we have a lot of similarities. I love how you leverage like your desires and your wants, or even just make the best of whatever has come your way and leverage the hell out of it, like benefits after benefits. It's crazy. Like I used to have a pit bull, and during that time I worked at an animal vet clinic. I know so much about animals that it's ridiculous, but I'm not an animal kind of person. So when I'm talking to people like, oh, look at that cocker spaniel, look at that, this, that, they're like, what, how do you know that, like this, that, and but it's like I utilize that because having a pet as a kid is expensive as hell, y'all. Like I need people to understand that. So now back to the whole
I love that.
like, do you
We
know
can talk about it. That's a whole thing that we do. It's not just us, but look,
it's a whole situation,
it's a
right?
whole way of just operating. It makes sense to me, but
Yeah,
Mhm.
barter and trade, like this money thing is fictitious, just like time, like you said. So
yep,
okay, tell
it
me
really
about
is.
this these effects of corn. Like I know that America, first of all, America has colonized food, like you said. It happened, I think, between the 60s and the 70s when the government realized that they could no longer supplement or offset like the money that farmers needed to make to meet supply and demand. And basically, instead of like figuring it out and going local, they said, nope, we're going to go bigger and make trash food in quantities and abundance in bulk. It's going to be cheap as hell, and everybody's going to be full and happy. And no, it's awful. And corn, wheat, and some other things is
Soybeans.
all these things are why I
Mm.
believe we have like what is it, the gluten allergy and all that.
So
So this is in my lane. So you tell us, Mick and I.
before she answers, let me share this. Let me share this comment. Is that just like we were talking about Sunday? Because Quita was putting down some knowledge in a room again full of senators and mayors and legislative people who are making decisions just like the one we're speaking about with the corn, right? So like during the depression, they panicked, they needed to feed people. These were ideas that were supposed to help, and me and Sheldon were talking about this, ideas that were supposed to help, but actually deteriorated our health
Yeah, they
through
caused more
food.
harm because they didn't think it through. But go ahead, Chad.
Right. So go ahead.
Do you mind?
Oh,
Gotta go. Go ahead.
okay. I just saw in the comment somebody said they're gonna grow their own corn. Awesome. Like that's great. Like you totally should. So yeah, what you were just talking about, they subsidize corn. And so that's why you have all these corn farms, these giant, giant, giant. Have you ever driven across country? Like I drove and I saw just endless, endless, endless fields of corn. I'm also from the Shenandoah Valley, so we're the poultry capital. It's just factory farms, chicken houses, fields and fields and fields of corn, factory dairy farms. I grew up around all of that. We have a lot of like weird illnesses where I'm from. Asthma is really bad, but okay. So the corn thing. So there's a documentary called King Corn. I definitely recommend watching it. If you're a reader and you like to read, there's two books I recommend reading. One is called The Omnivore's Dilemma. It's by Michael Pollan. And then the other one is Fast Food Nation by Eric Schlosser. Those are great books that are written for the general public by journalists. So I think they're very I just think they're just a good read. Like you're not going to sit there having to be bored.
Mm-hmm.
But they subsidized corn, and so they had all this overproduction of corn in the US, these giant factory farms of corn, and then they had to do stuff with it. So that's why we got corn syrup. That's why we have uh
Corn, everything.
dextrin, like all these corn products. Like you don't even know how much stuff that you're eating that is actually derivative from corn.
Mm-hmm.
So vegetable oil is usually corn oil. So we also started doing this like stuff with like if y'all have ever heard of Roundup Ready corn. So all this corn has been modified, and then it's a whole thing. So we're not even eating like corn as we know it.
Right.
And so it's in so many of our products so the carbon isotope that is in human beings is C14. So the version of carbon that we have in our body is C14. We eat so much corn in this country that if you do a scratch test on a human being's skin in the US, it'll be C13, which is the carbon isotope in corn.
Oh, so it's just like
So,
permeating through our skin.
yeah, it's everywhere. So I actually have developed a corn allergy. I cannot
Mhm.
eat corn. I also can't
How
really
did
eat
you
gluten.
realize
I'm
it
kind of
though?
cheat with gluten, but I cannot eat corn. Like my body doesn't even digest corn anymore. So that's like a whole thing. I can't even eat it, which is funny because I studied this 20 years ago, and then I was like, oh, okay, corn is terrible. And then I actually developed an allergy later on. I saw in the comments somebody said they're gonna get the seeds from their Navajo tribe. So I don't want to speak like out of my lane on this, but another great book is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She talks about the three sisters. So in indigenous tribes of Turtle Island, which is what North America is called, the three sisters are, well, I'm going to get this wrong, are corn, beans, and I'm trying to remember the third one. This is so bad. I might have to be reminded. Corn, beans, and squash. Yeah, corn, beans, and squash. And so they're grown together and they basically feed each other. Yeah, beans, squash, and corn. Ashley just put it up. Thank you. So corn is actually, it's a new world. So you have old world foods and new world foods. So that would be considered new world food. And the way that it's actually eaten and processed and the types of corn, right? The literal species of corn that were grown by First Nations people is very different and is actually not bad for you. But it's the factory farming and the way in which it actually depletes the soil.
Right.
It actually leads to all sorts of issues where when you grow the three sisters together, they actually replenish the soil.
Mm-hmm.
They help each other.
Right.
So the other thing is like, for example, in Mexico, when they make tortillas, corn actually isn't really processed in our body very well unless it's cooked with lime, not lime juice, but lime the mineral. So the traditional tortillas actually have corn, so masa powder, and lime. And that is actually what allows our bodies to be able to process and to actually get the nutritional value from corn. So it's not that corn is bad,
Right.
that the practices around how, and then high fructose corn syrup, we've already figured out that is, and it's still in everything. They haven't banned it. They banned it in New York, I think. But it causes a lot of issues, and a lot of people actually have sensitivities and allergies to corn, but they don't realize it.
Right.
Affect your mood. You can notice that kids will get like they found that it can sometimes cause like inflammation in the brain that we can't see. And so sometimes when kids have like soda, there's not sugar in soda, it's high fructose corn syrup. They get like, yeah, so they almost, have you ever seen a kid where they just get almost so wound up it seems like they're possessed after they eat something with?
Mm-hmm.
So this can have an effect on us that we don't even realize.
Right.
I'm not trying to,
Right. These aren't scare tactics.
but
These
the
are
thing I like about those two books that I mentioned earlier is that they educate you. So anything that you're doing, you should know. And the US's system is like, they don't want to put labels on stuff. They don't want to tell you it's GMO. And there's lobbyists that pay billions of dollars so that the government won't regulate it. When you go to Europe, all the stuff that we eat here, it's illegal.
It's banned.
It doesn't even allow it.
Yeah.
So, and you have to label everything.
Yep.
And so, your knowledge is your power. Like if I go to McDonald's, I know what I'm eating.
Right.
That's not saying don't go to McDonald's. It's just have the knowledge of exactly what you're putting into your body and then make an informed decision about what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. And so now one other thing that you mentioned that I wanted you to touch on is Black and Afrofuturism.
Like speculative arts.
Yes. All of it.
Okay, so I'm a nerd, but it really, if you think about all of our ancestors, they were doing some nerdy shit because they had to have some big dreams and they had to imagine a world that wasn't even
here.
I mean, they had to imagine a world in which we were free.
Yeah.
Imagine that there's nothing more Black speculative fiction, arts. I mean, it's arts. It's not fiction. It's arts.
Right.
So actually, the BSAM movement, the Black Speculative Arts movement. So I've always been a nerd. It wasn't cool, but now it is. And I grew up on Star Wars. Like my dad said, they took me to the movie theater when I was like a baby, and I didn't like cause a ruckus in the movie theater. And then the first movie I ever sat through completely was one of the Star Wars movies. He said, "You just sat there and watched it at home." He was like, "You didn't move."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Yeah." So I'm still a big Star Wars nerd. But Black Speculative Arts is really, I think now it's Black Panther is kind of the tip of the iceberg, believe it or not.
Okay.
Black Panther is like awesome. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I have, the comics, but we got to remember the original Black Panther was written by a white man.
Right.
W.E. Du Bois actually had science fiction writing that has now been published. He wrote this short story called The Comet.
Okay.
So this art form is not new. I am a big fan and acolyte of Octavia Butler, rest her soul. And I think they made one of her books, most famous books, into a TV show. I haven't watched it yet. I've heard that it's not
as good.
Yeah, but Kindred. And so the books that she did that really had an impact on me were Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. And yeah, I don't even know where to go with this because there's so much, but I can talk about my own work. I have
do that.
With a group of folks when I lived in Oregon. So I lived in Oregon for 4 years. I went to grad school there, and a group of us started this thing called Opening Space for the Radical Imagination. It was a conference, and it centered Black, queer, feminist, anarchist, imaginative, ways of knowing and being, and doing transformative justice and changing the world. And it's effective. And not only is it effective, you heal along the way. And it embraces all the things. It embraces a worldview that is indigenous, that is queer, that is inclusive, that is Black AF, that is rooted in being part of the universe, part of the land, part of, we're animals. We think that we're better than, but really it's like, so I think there's a lot of, and there's room for all sorts of things within this cosmology and this mind frame. It's like, we don't all agree. You got people saying, "Don't call me an Afrofuturist, I'm an Afro-presentist," or like, but it opens up the conversation because why? We're talking about the realm of imagination, and we're using that to also talk about things that are very real. So it's limitless. It's full of art and music and poetry. And I just saw here, Lion Man, who debuted at all Negro Comics in 1947. Yeah. So I want to shout out one of my really good friends who is from Baltimore, who is a comic book writer. His name is JP Jackson. He's at JP Jackson Art on Instagram. We actually met at the Black Mall event. He does like a cyberpunk comic book. And so Baltimore is actually like an amazing place. There's this book, edited volume called Red Lines. And it's an Afrofuturist. Do you know about this?
No, but it's just funny you mentioned that because I'm as the conversation's evolving, I wanted to at some point bring back around to your website. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I can put it up on this website.
Oh, that's my consulting business.
Right. And so if you go to your website and scroll down, you have a red line map of Baltimore, which I thought was interesting because that's Quita's jam, bro. Like, don't get her do get her started. But please continue. Go ahead.
Right. I'm like, tell me more.
Stuff into you see how I snuck that? So yes, there's an edited volume of short stories written by folks here in Baltimore about Baltimore called Red Lines, and it's a sci-fi anthology. fantastic. I got 2 copies, so if you want to borrow one, Quita, it's for you.
Yes.
I love using Black speculative arts in education. So I use it in my workshops. I do my Zagwale website shows I do different workshops, and I also am a writer. So I write science fiction, and I use that to do social justice. So everything for me is rooted in how do we use art? How do we use the imagination? So the first thing that is colonized is our imagination. Watch a child. Watch how we as adults and we as a society and how folks in power colonize the imagination.
Micknai, I say that all the time. Go ahead, Chad.
Like what you're
No,
doing, Quita,
she's killing me,
that
man.
is
I'm loving
breaking
it, right?
out. You have broken. You're out there. That's what people are like.
Right.
So to comment on that thought, did you watch the new? Have you watched the new reboot of Star Trek's? Right? Have you watched Discovery with the black female captain, Michael Burnham?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the very first episode, they show the Klingons, and they're looking blackety black. I'm just going to put that out there for whatever reason. And
No,
they're talking about the colonizers, right? The Federation, and how they invade and take over, and they usurp, different things, and this whole concept, and they come with the words, "We come in peace," right? And so it just made me think of that when you're talking and you're bringing all the Star Trek in, because I'm a Star Trek, like, I was in the theater when they did so I was born in 78 when they brought it. So they didn't show movies on TV like they do now, right? So they actually brought Star Wars, the first one, back into the theaters for a second viewing in 79. I was 1 years old. My parents took me, and I grew up on like the old William Shatner. So you like nerding out, and these references are like, you're killing me over here, because I just want to jump out of my seat and like.
We gonna have to talk about that sometime.
Bro,
yeah.
I need y'all to understand this conversation is one that everybody wants to be a part of. Y'all saw,
including Ashley.
Right?
Hi.
Y'all
jump in. I talk too much. I want to talk to people.
Comments. She was like engaging. She's been on the show before. Thank you, Ashley, for joining us today.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm so happy like y'all were talking about like the corn, because I've been on this like going down this rabbit hole looking for seeds, and it's wild like how hard it is to come by like authentic like indigenous seeds, like because I don't want to get like into my whole DNA, but yeah, like I'm Nigerian, Navajo, and Mexican, and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah. So I'm trying to like, now that I have a son, like make sure that I teach him all these different things and like rethinking things that I've been taught. And I like that you talked about education too.
Right.
That's going to be a big one.
Yeah. Have you heard of True Love Seeds?
No, I haven't.
I don't know if they have exactly what you're looking for, but check them out. It's trueloveseeds.com.
Okay. Yeah, because I found somebody that lives on the Navajo Nation that has them, and so I was like, oh, it's like I have my own connect.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, seed libraries are like a big thing. So one of my stories that I've been writing, I talk about seed libraries, but it's a thing. There's a lot of people that do them, and indigenous folks have like very intentional seed libraries. I'm actually teaching a class at Our Time Kitchen, a business class on March 10th, I think, on decolonizing your kitchen for business owners. And we have a little like garden and farm there, but we'll see how it goes. If that goes well, I'll be able to start maybe doing it on a different type of scale. That'll bring in a lot of the food anthropology stuff, and a lot of what you're talking about, Ashley. And so, yeah, we should definitely keep in touch, because I try to stay in my lane as much as possible and give resources, but it's always good to have, like more people involved, because we want to talk about these type of things from different perspectives, and make sure that we're, including like folks that actually are of Turtle Island, and have these experiences. I think what you're talking about, Ashley, is like just perfect. Like, I think it's a perfect example in a story, but you were successful, which I love. And then you're talking about bringing this to your child. Like, that's it. That's what it's about. Like, to me, yeah, exactly. So it is possible. A lot of this stuff that I talk about, I think when you come out of the colonization of the imagination, you realize like we've been told that we're victims and we can't do stuff. It's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not true.
Don't believe it.
I refuse to believe it. I just won't.
Yeah, and I'm also exploring like medicine because I know like on the Cherokee side that I have, like the documents that I have, it says that my family were medicine people. And so that's like really fascinating to me. Yeah, especially because they're disconnected from like their tribes, and we don't, at this point, we don't qualify for like tribal membership, but I still take it upon myself to like be intentional about like doing my own research and rooting myself in it, whether they accept me or not. So yeah, is that part of anthropology, like looking into like medicine and like natural medicine?
I would say that there are anthropologists who have done it. Zora Neale Hurston did it. She actually was a foremost scholar on hoodoo. I would recommend, I know I'm recommending books, sorry, but I don't know if you're a reader, because some people I know almost like all the time, but there's a book called Mojo Working. Yeah, I would look at that. And then there are actually, I studied herbalism under a Black herbalist that specifically, like, the classes were for Black and BIPOC folk. Rootworks is the name of it. There's other ones though. That's just the one that I studied under. And so yeah, there are. If you want to talk offline and you're interested in more information, I could definitely connect you to some folks that. And then I do have a person who is a medicine woman in the Sioux tradition, and I can connect you to her products if you want to make sure that you're buying stuff from people who are harvesting. Because when you harvest as a herbalist, like there's a whole process. Like you gotta thank the land. You gotta like it's not just and knowing what's in season, knowing what's so. But Braiding Sweetgrass, she has an audiobook. I highly recommend the audiobook. It's her narrating it. You probably will learn a lot about the medicine of Indigenous peoples just listening to that book. So, yeah, highly recommend.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll get off. It's like I don't want to hijack y'all show.
I've been talking the whole time, so I'm like,
listen, we want to hear from you. They hear from us every week, okay? They hear from us every single week. So we want to hear from you. And Ashley, you are always welcome to come on. Like, Ashley is one of the guests who have been on, like, almost, I don't know, 3 times, 2 or 3 times.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I haven't talked to y'all, like, so... like
right since you've been
elected to the school board. Yeah, so like that's why I'm having these like
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and
I voted. Were you on the ballot when I was voting for?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to the school board and I was like, I don't know. I should have done my research. I'm just being full. But so I hope I voted for you. I got stressed out when I got to that part, and then I said, okay, it's my first time voting in Baltimore. Next time I'll be ready.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so like thank you. And like Native American Lifelines in Baltimore, like they were talking about like they really want to make sure that like kids have access to arts and stuff that are Indigenous and all these things. So yeah, I would love to talk more. Yeah, it'd be great.
That is so dope.
I would love to learn more. I mean, I'm new, so I'm people. I know what I know, but there's
so much more.
Yeah, I don't know any. It's a drop in the cosmic bucket. So I'm always here to
know so much more than us. So bring back that knowledge, empower us.
I don't know if that's true, Quita.
Then we go out and we got to reach back. We're the talented 10th, y'all. Like we are so blessed to be able to do what we want in so many different ways. Like by hook or crook, right? Like we're figuring it out. We're doing it. The lights are on. We got some digital access. Like not everybody has these things. So yes, #blessed. So while we're blessed and we get these resources, we get to give them back to the community. That's what I love about this platform. We're sharing space because you gave us 17,000 books to read. Thank you very much, because we are readers, all right? And apparently so are you. I'm gonna be honest. I'm more of a audiobook kind of person because I'm always multitasking. But
I think everything I mentioned is an audiobook except for Mojo Working, which I actually called my friend and was like, "Can we do an audiobook version of this?" I was like, can we make it? Because like I
Right.
need this an audiobook. Like what this book needs to be an audiobook. But yeah, I think everything I mentioned, because I am also an audiobook person.
Yes, I mean, and the way AI is set up these days, I'm sure if we Google
Oh
enough, we can
yeah.
find an AI version of it. I'm telling you some good stuff.
I
Okay.
think Alexa will read the book to you.
Okay. Look, you know what? I'm not going to call her right now because she's going to mess up the whole broadcast
She doesn't
situation.
like me.
Yeah, look, I call her all the names. All right, all the names. So this has been really, really dope. I am super excited that you made it on. And so you're doing something. You said March. What was it?
So March 10th. So if you all are on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and you want to follow me, it's at Micknai. So it's just my first name.
Okay.
So and I am one of the tenants at Our Time Kitchen, also a really cool place to check out.
Yes.
It's a new
Woman
community and
owned, right?
commercial kitchen. Where?
It's woman owned. I almost said black
Yes.
owned, but I feel like
Yeah,
it's
black.
Kat and somebody
Yeah,
else.
Kat and Kaya. It's a black woman and a white woman who own it. Very intentional in their mission, and they're doing a series of classes. And then I also sell food for Habesha Flavor for my food business out of there. So I'm gonna start doing Monday. So I'm gonna do next Monday. But if you follow me, you want updates and everything, you'll see me that way. I haven't really gotten to the level of being disciplined enough right now to have a newsletter for
Okay.
those who do email, but
But
I'll
you
get
can
around
still
to it.
collect email addresses so that
That
when
is
you're
true.
ready or when you have an
That
event,
is true.
because look, Small Homes is supposed to have a monthly newsletter. That thing has been off.
Wait, if you want to get together and
Yeah,
write
look,
our newsletters together, we can
Yes.
do that as our
I tell you
accountability.
guys what,
Yes.
we'll talk, but I got you. So real quick, because Robert's about to come on in a couple minutes. Robert actually put me on with Jasper AI, and what Jasper does, it's an AI where you it helps you write, like you can type in, like you're googling something, like you can type in article about breadcoin in Baltimore, and it'll just come up with this whole article using the internet and research in like 10 seconds, right? So I'll share that resource with you guys. We can get some information out and broadcast using Robert's tool. So thank you, Robert. I appreciate you. I definitely want to have you come back, and definitely we need
Yeah,
to
thanks for
unpack.
having me.
Yeah, no, and we definitely need to unpack and promote this right here, because I didn't hear a lot about it. I'm not sure what you do on this tip, but I definitely appreciate that. I see you out in the community doing things, showing up, like we just said in the very beginning, like you out here because you show up, um, and it's encouraging. It's encouraging to see other people like yourself out here doing the work, and like you said, staying in your role. I stay in my role, but together we all stand in the gap for each other, and we really. I know that we serve Baltimore community well, and that's what this show's about: is showing people the different people that stand in the gaps, and you don't have to do everything. You're not alone. If you need something, call us because we know a guy. We know Mick and I. If she needs something, she knows Quita. Quita knows Ashley. Like we got people just hopping on the show because that's the
Yeah,
network. That's the tribe. That's a tribal life, man. So
I love
I
it.
definitely appreciate you. I don't know. You have any last words for us?
I just thank you for having me here. Gratitude. Y'all fill my cup. I need my cup filled too. Like this is what keeps me going, and it's great to be with people who are cultural weavers, and understand the importance of that. And so, yeah, just gratitude and peace, blessings, prosperity to everybody in this new year.
That is beautiful. I don't have anything else to say. Robert is coming up. We will see you all same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for coming out. God bless. Good night. We are out.
Good night.